You guys, we're live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for September 27th, 2021. And we'll call the meeting to order. And regarding the agenda, I do have item 9.6 to add to closed session as per our administration ask, related to the offer to purchase land in accordance with section 16 to prevent the disclosure of commercial, financial, and/or technical information of a third party of the Freedom of Information Privacy Protection Act. And with that, also ask for adoption of the agenda. Councillor Stramas.
Your Worship, I'd like to add one more item as well. That Council adds a Code of Conduct bylaw 1-2018. It'll come under number 9-7, disciplinary action discussion. Council takes the meeting into closed session to prevent disclosure that could reasonably expected to reveal consultations or deliberations involving officers of a public body in accordance with section 24(1), advice from officials of the Freedom of Information Protection Act, FOIP Act. And with that, I'll move that the Council adopts the agenda.
Councillor Stramas.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. You're going to have to explain a little further to me what you're driving at. I have no information with what you're referring to.
Your Worship, it's about a letter that was supposed to arrive to Council that I want to address in closed session.
All right. To our administration, do we have any letter in that regard that you're aware of?
There's been no letter come to administration that we're aware of at this point.
All right, then back to you, Councillor Stravos. We have nothing information-wise before us.
I would like to address it in closed session, why it hasn't showed up, Your Worship.
Oh, that's fine, but first off, we have to decide whether or not we're going to accept this as the agenda item. And I don't see anything of merit at this stage that allows for that. Councillor Firth?
Through the chair to Councillor Stravos, is this a time-sensitive matter? Because if it is not, I would prefer that it would be added to our next meeting agenda, as I would prefer to have the opportunity to review the information before the meeting.
Councillor Firth, I believe it's a time-sensitive matter, and I'll be bringing forth a motion later in the meeting to cancel the next meeting as we're getting close to the election, so that'll come up in standing items as well.
All right, Councillor Stravos, that's neither here nor there. If you're going to do that, that'll be fine. But I do not see where there's an urgent need for what you're suggesting for some mysterious letter content.
Very well, Your Worship, I'll withdraw this with reluctance.
All right, thank you. Now with that, Councillor Stravos, I believe you're also going to add an item to the agenda as per our standard protocol the last 3 months.
Yes, that Council adopts the agenda as amended to allow for the opportunity to undertake closed session items prior to the timing of delegations at 5 p.m.
All right, with that, ask for an amended motion for the agenda to be accepted, please. Councillor Firth?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Amended adoption of the agenda. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And move to item number 3, adoption of the minutes. Item 3.1, minutes of the regular meeting of Council, September 13th, 2021. Mr. Thibault.
This is just coming to Council for your consideration. The administration has nothing further to add.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Garner.
No questions arising at this time, but I'm prepared to make a motion that Council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held September 13th.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Bruin?
2021.
Okay. Business arising from the minutes. There are none. Item 4.1, Traffic Committee Policy Approval will be next. Mr. Thibault.
This is submitted to Council. There was just some updates provided for the traffic control bylaw. And actually, I don't know, is it Ms. DeBona that's speaking on it for us. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Do you have to turn that on? Okay, so you've previously adopted this policy and approved it. We've revised the policy after council's change to the traffic control bylaw for authorization of permanent traffic control devices to go before council before decision-making. So we've revised it and asked for your approval of this revised policy.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that council approves the traffic committee policy ADM-5 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5, bylaws, there are none. Action items, item 6.1, irrigation district amalgamation. Mr. Tebow.
So the Taber Irrigation District had sent in a ballot for council's consideration. Administration doesn't really have anything further to add, unless there's some questions. I think Mr. Shearer can speak to those.
All right, thank you. Did you have something to add to that, Mr. Shearer?
Well, I just wanted to add that, you know, if the two amalgamate, we've had a good relationship with TID. We presented to TID board. They've sponsored us on numerous projects and worked with us. So whatever which way council decides to vote, I just want to thank TID on their endorsement and working with us in sponsorship. So we appreciate everything they've done for the town of Taber.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shearer. Councillor Firth.
Sorry, Mr. Shearer, before you run away, I have a question for you. Do you foresee any issues for the town of Taber with the Taber Irrigation District and St. Mary Irrigation District amalgamating?
I know I've worked with both of them. My preference, personal preference, is to work with TID. They're a lot more receptive and open to everything we've been doing. So that would be my preference, personal preference, but that's up to council to choose.
Right, but are there anything in the terms of the amalgamation that give you any pause or?
Not really, no. As long as, you know, some of the TID boards, and I believe there are a couple that are moving into St. Mary's board, as long as we have representation, I think we should be fine.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've followed this amalgamation process quite closely because I've got a special interest. I used to be on the board of SMRD a long time ago, and I think it's the move that was supposed to happen about 30 years ago and finally is occurring, I believe. I think it's a good idea generally, and I would certainly be in favor as a council to vote yes in favor of this amalgamation. It's a done deal anyway, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering. Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through to Gary. Will this affect any of our ongoing projects with the Sugar Factory Lake there?
I don't believe it should. I mean, they've been supportive. The sugar factory, there's discussions. I don't think it'll affect any of our projects or with the sugar factory because they all have their water allocations. So same with the town.
Okay, thank you.
If I'm reading this information package correctly, Mr. Shearer, as per Councillor Beckering's comments also, are they not just basically looking for our blessing to go forward?
That's exactly right.
Right.
As Councillor Beckering said, I think it's a done deal.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. Perfect, Thank you. All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move that council approves the proposed amalgamation by voting yes in favor of the proposed amalgamation between the Taber Irrigation District and the St. Mary River Irrigation District.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.2, chain of office policy. Mr. Tebow.
So this is a new policy for the town, and Ms. Brennan will be presenting on it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brennan.
Good afternoon, Council. As council is aware, every year the operating budget allows for the purchase of promotional items. This year, we did not need to purchase as many promotional items, so we had enough budget to use to continue to raise the town's level of professionalism and to update our ceremonial protocols, as we have been doing for the past number of years. Because council's been welcoming more dignitaries and is hosting more events with ceremonial intent, administration believed it was a prudent time to have a chain that our municipality can be proud of. The history of the chains of office date back as early as the 14th century, and many Canadian municipalities follow the practice as part of British and Commonwealth tradition. Additionally, having a chain of office meets council's strategic goals in defining and practicing good governance, as well as enhancing the sense of community. This chain is meant to be a point of pride for the community and is a symbol of the history that has come before us and the future of our community that is yet to come. The policy in your agenda package will serve to outline the strictures and protocols around the ceremonial chain, so it is very clear to the council and to the chief elected official what the protocols are around a chain of office. If council has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Ms. Brennan. Do we have the chain of office in our possession?
I was hoping somebody would ask, if you'll be patient with me. She's strapped in quite well. Chief elected official first.
All right, well, thank you. That's very impressive. Thank you so much. You want to pass it on?
Rest of the class, if I may.
Thank you. Well done.
It does. As per the policy, if you choose to accept it.
Very well done. Thank you, Ms. Brennan. Councillor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess this was done without council approval, is that correct?
It was done through the operational budget, which council approves, but council did not initiate the purchase of the chain of office, no.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To follow up, please.
Absolutely.
Have you identified the occasions where the mayor should wear the chain of office, Ms. Brennan?
It's in the policy, so we did quite extensive research on other chains of office throughout Britain and Europe and some of the ones that can be found in Alberta specifically. And it is specifically ceremonial, so when ambassadors come, consul generals, things like that, ceremonial events, our volunteer recognition banquet would also be considered ceremonial. But something like a parade would not be considered ceremonial. So that's kind of the differentiation we found.
All right, thank you. Councillor Stravas?
Yes, Your Worship, I appreciate time and effort that went into this here, but it would have been nice if council would have been in the loop on this here. It's this is definitely an item that that requires the mayor to be aware of and to wear. So I'm a little disappointed that council wasn't in the loop on this one.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
I think you did a very lovely job with that, and I think it's nice to have tradition and be proud of our heritage, so kudos to you for doing it. I would have voted in favor of it.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Firth?
No questions or comments, but I am prepared to make a motion at this time.
All right, thank you.
I move that council approves the chain of office policy C12 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, on to department reports. I'll go through these individually. If anybody has any questions, please stop me accordingly. Human Resources Department report. Administrative Service reports. CAO report for August. Public Works reports. Engineering and Public Works Department reports. Fire Department reports. Finance Activity report. Recreation Department reports. And Planning and Economic Development report. Seeing no questions, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accepts the department reports for information.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.4, Mayor and Councillor reports. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been a busy month, and yet I can't think of, off the top of my head, anything specific to highlight, but yeah, certainly been a busy time with the federal election and now the municipal election coming up. So looking forward to our last few meetings. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Nothing exciting to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Garner.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got a report that I'll give to you. I attended briefly the barbecue competition in the Centennial Park, which was well attended and well done. Attended the Trout Pond Committee meeting in the Green Room on Monday, this past Monday. Attended the MPC meeting later in the day. And I attended the Arts, Culture, and Events meeting Tuesday. Wednesday, I believe I did an interview with the Tabor Times, and then I was invited to attend a private film debut of a movie made by a fellow Tabor resident up in Lethbridge at the Casa building. A movie entitled Chess for Life by Tanner James Holsey that was pretty impressive. He did very well. And then I attended the Cornfest wind-up meeting with the organizing committee and some of the town staff on Thursday. And then I attended the MD's grand opening of the new Vauxhall rest stop facility on Friday.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chavez.
Yes, Your Worship, Library Board meeting. The library has faced some huge challenges in the last little while, and new manager Chris is making great strides and doing very well. The new library board members are still required to make up a full board. The library needs its support to be an open and safe space for all. The handy bus has a tough go because of COVID restrictions for ridership, but there hasn't been a lot of meetings in the past with a handy bus. Municipal Planning Commission building permits are up substantially, 3 times, and a bouquet to the Planning and Development Department for a tremendous job keeping all of these permits and things moving forward. The new growth in the last 8 years are a real plus for the tax base and the future of Tabor. As irrigation in the area positions Tabor for some huge economic agribusiness growth. The Audit Committee, it's been a pleasure to work with the town's financial team, doing a great job keeping the Audit Committee and Council apprised of the town finances. The Police Commission has had some challenging items come forth. The support of the town police officers needs to remain strong as we go forward in these demanding times. The accountability of commission members needs to be above reproach. That's my report.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a Highway 3 board meeting. We're developing a strategic plan. It's very exciting for the town of Tabor to see the highway twinned through to Burdett, and hopefully we can go further with it and other areas along the highway. I attended the barbecue event that was held at the Confederation Park. It was, weather wasn't the best, but I think everyone enjoyed it, and there was some good eats there. That's about what I've done this month. I'd also like to wish a belated happy birthday to our mayor.
Well, thank you, Councillor Bruin. Appreciate that. And for myself, I've attended a variety of meetings in the last month as well. Numerous required document signing duties. I did spend some time with our new CEO, Mr. Darren Thibault, and once again, officially welcome aboard to your first official meeting. And I also spent some time with an individual having difficulty with her Canadian citizenship papers application. I attended the barbecue that was already mentioned by some council members as well. Very well done as well. I also attended and opened the Legends Rodeo event. Also very well done, and a 4-day event that brought a lot of people, a lot of economic benefit to our community. Also attended the Vauxhall Rest Stop grand opening. And that would be my report. Someone prepared to make that motion, please. Councillor Bruin.
Make the motion, Mr. Mayor, that council accepts the mayor and council reports for information.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, on to item 6.5, standing item council requests. Mr. Tebow.
So my understanding of this is this is the one item that was made mention of. Prior to my arrival, Mr. Orwa and Mr. Scheer had kindly cleaned up the list of historical items. And the item that's here before you is still in progress.
All right, thank you. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that council cancels the October 12th, 2021 council meeting due to its proximity to the municipal election on October 18th, 2021. And furthermore, directs administration to review the council procedural bylaw with the new incoming council to consider the cancellation of all future council meetings during the month of municipal elections. The background to this is because most municipalities don't have meetings in October. They don't tie their incoming councils to anything that come up. And we would be just following in sync with a lot of the other councils around.
All right, thank you, Councillor Strauss. Any questions, comments? Councillor Bruin.
I would have to speak against the motion. I think we have a lot going on here yet. And just because it's election time doesn't mean the town's business quits. So I strongly oppose it.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bruin. Councillor Firth.
Also speaking in opposition to the motion, I don't think it's fair to administration if there was items that they were planning to bring to that meeting, and I kind of fail to see how having one more meeting would hold a new council to anything that wouldn't happen at this meeting. I'm not sure why having a meeting in October would make any difference. A new council is certainly able to rescind any policies or change anything as they see fit.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak in support of the motion. I think it's what I call fair play. Fair play is something that you don't take advantage of, even though you could. I think, like Councillor Strauss mentioned, there's many municipalities that do not have elections in October. As a matter of fact, Lethbridge hasn't had one for about a month almost. And Calgary hasn't had one for a month, except for an emergency meeting they had last week to do with COVID. I think it's in my view, Mr. Mayor, somewhat poor taste to have a council meeting 5 days before an election. I think it's the council can at any time call an emergency meeting of council, but to have a regular meeting of council, I'm speaking in support of the motion.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Garner.
I support what Councillor Becker brought up. I think it's in good taste that we clear the decks a little just prior to the election.
All right, thank you. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd call for a recorded vote on this, please.
All right, we can do that, absolutely. I just had one question for administration. If I know Lethbridge is in the news with going down that path as far as a possibility, but is that fairly common in the province that you're aware of, Mr. Tebow?
I'm actually not in a good position to speak to that. I know
Okay.
Lethbridge does do it.
Right.
But I'm not aware. In my last place, it wasn't something that we did, but I certainly couldn't speak for what happens across Alberta.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, with that, ask for a recorded vote as per Councillor Strauss' request, please. And with that, we do have a motion on the table. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated? Thank you. All right, moving on. Actually, not moving on. We have delegations at 5 p.m. Fireman's Bonneville First Delegation. So with that, I would ask for a motion to move into closed session to deal with at least a couple of closed session items. Councillor Beckering?
Also move, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. All right, if we could reconvene the meeting, please, and start with our delegations. Item 7.1, Fireman's Bonus Bill. Mr. Tebow.
Yep, council, Fireman's Bonds Bill, there's going to be a presentation made by Mr. Swarbrick, pronounced correctly, I hope.
All right, thank you. Mr. Schwarbeck. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your consideration and allowing me to speak today. I have to apologize for my delegation. One is dealing with a family emergency and the other one just left work, so he might fly in the doors here any minute.
Sure, no trouble.
I also apologize in advance if the tones go off. We mean no disrespect, but we're an active fire hall and the presentation will be.
Absolutely understandable.
Thank you. My name is Steve Swarbrick and I have no one with me. President Kevin Roll was the president of the Firefighters Association and Chad Clark is the Tabor Curling Club, both sending their support. I don't want to waste any of your time by repeating the information in the application, but would like to highlight a few important points. Beginning in 1959, this event marks the 62nd annual Alberta Firefighter Curling Championship. It hasn't been hosted in southern Alberta, south of Calgary, since it was hosted in Lethbridge in 1976. We have a proposed budget of approximately $30,000 covered by team entry fees, the Canadian Firefighters Curling Association, the Alberta Firefighters Curling Association, corporate and municipal donations, and we are respectfully requesting $5,000 from the town of Tabor. I would also like to mention that we have requested the same amount from the MD Council, which I believe it goes to them tomorrow. It's been through the committee as a whole, and we're really hoping that we can make this a joint effort between the two fire departments presented in the town of Tabor, and we've spoken to the curling club in Vauxhall as well, because we will possibly, depending on the amount of teams, need 2 rinks. We also understand that we are coming late in the budget cycle, and if it helps, we would be able to proceed with a council motion for the money to be awarded at the beginning of January 2022. I myself have competed in this event since 2009, playing for many teams from the north, until 2018 when Captain Roll joined me and other Tabor firefighters for our first team. Hosting this event here not only gives firefighters throughout Alberta a chance to gather as brothers and sisters, but will also be great awareness for the event for fire departments here in southern Alberta. Again, thank you for your time and consideration. We are now, I am, of course, open to questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Captain Swarbrick. If you aren't able to hold your bond spiel this year, will it be postponed again till next year? Is that the plan?
I assume you're referring to COVID restrictions and...
Yes, I am.
Yes, we will make arrangements. I can't promise that it would get to come back to Tabor, but they did do it when we canceled the last one. They did allow us to host the following year. So hopefully that will work. There he is.
All right, thank you. And did that gentleman have anything to add by chance? I think you kind of got her covered, but anything to add yourself?
Sorry, I missed the whole thing.
All right.
I did indicate that you were sending your support from the
All right,
club.
perfect. Any other questions arising whatsoever? All right, someone appear to make a motion. Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think it's great. This thing with the MD is fire department's going to be involved somewhat with it.
That is our hope. We have to wait for their decision, but yes.
Okay, no, I think that's really good, especially involving Vauxhall as well. To bring some teams to Vauxhall is a good idea. I enjoyed your presentation at the Recreation Board meeting, so I am prepared to make a motion now. That council thanks the Tabor Firefighters Association and the Tabor Curling Club representatives for the presentation and supports the Tabor Firefighters Association with a $5,000 financial grant from the 2021 Community Grant Program to be used towards hosting the 62nd annual AFFCA Provincial Firefighters Curling Championship in January 2022.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed that it's from the 2021 budget. Is there money left on that account, Mr. Orba? Do you know?
Mr. Orwell?
The question is, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Orba, I noticed that the $5,000 request is to come out of the 2021 Community Grants Program budget. I thought that was all spent already, or not, Mr. Orba? Shouldn't it be 2022?
Now, it depends on, do they want this, when do you want this one presented, in 2022 or in 2021?
As I mentioned, it can be presented at the beginning of January. The bond spiel is at the end of January. So as long as we have a council motion that says we're going to get the money,
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
survive.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
then, a friendly amendment to Councilor Bruin's motion to replace the 2021 to 2022.
All right,
If that's
thank you.
acceptable.
Councillor Bruin?
I accept that friendly amendment. If Mr. Orwell, I think that's the best.
All right, thank you. Councillor Strauss?
Your worship, in the footnotes here, the financial implication says the time of creating the request for decision, approximately $5,400 remaining in the council discretionary fund, that's for 2021, and approximately $13,000 remaining in the community grant program due to a large number of events being canceled. So it can come out of the 2021 budget, so you don't need to make an amendment there, because according to the information we received, we have the money, and it would come out of the current budget.
Well, just to clarify, Councillor Strauss, thank you for that, but the motion has already been made with an amendment accepted. And so if that's the case, we'd have to make another amendment to suggest it is the council's discretionary fund.
Yes, His Worship, just for clarification, I think it depends on exactly when they want this thing done. If it's 2021, then it can come out from 2021, but if it's 2022, then it can be incorporated in the 2022 budget. So it depends on exactly when you want this. Is it 2021 or 2022 to give council direction?
If I'm understanding this correctly, Mr. Roy, I think it's either or. It's as long as it's early in 2022, if we go that route, correct, Mr. Schwarber?
Yeah, that would be acceptable.
All right.
The reason we put that forward is
Right.
because we didn't know where the money was at.
Absolutely, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to point out exactly what Councillor Strava said.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin?
Yeah, so when I read the motion or made the motion, I saw that we had the money there, so I hopefully everything's fine with that. I'll stand by my motion with Mr. Veterans.
All right. A friendly amendment motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
all
luck,
very
Mr.
much.
Schwarber.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7.2, Tabor Lost Paws Society. Mr. Tebow.
I understand the delegation is just out, I think, in the foyer. And we've got Mrs. Terpstra and Mrs. Hind to provide a presentation.
What's that? Welcome, ladies. Good afternoon. All right, so either or, if the mic is not activated there, Al, can we make sure the mics are activated, ready to go? As long as the red light's on, you'll be fine. There you go.
This wasn't pushing hard enough.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Carolyn Terpstra, and this is my Vice President, Lila Hine. Sorry, I'm the President of the Tabor Lost Paws Society. We are here to ask for a $25,000 donation for our Tabor Lost Paws Society to finish our phase 3 of our outdoor facility at the new dog shelter. We've been doing this in phases. Our phase 1 was the building itself. Phase 2 was the inside of the building to finish it. Phase 3 now is the fencing, which we are in quite a need for at this point because we do not have any outdoor dog runs. So when dogs do come in, we don't have anywhere for them to run around. So we rely heavily on our volunteers to come in every 4 to 5 hours to walk our dogs. So walk them and feed them and play with them. Our phase 4 is our quarantine shed and our storage shed, which we'll also be needing, which we're thinking is going to be happening in the spring. And the last phase would be the landscaping for next year. So I do have a quote, and I'm not sure if you guys actually have a copy of it for our fencing quote. Do you guys happen to have that?
Okay, I believe that was there.
So they gave us 2 options, option A and option B. Option A basically being a 6-foot chain link fence with extenders with the barbed wire on top. Option B is 7-foot high fence with the extenders and the barbed wire fence over top, only on the outdoor perimeter of the property. The property is 0.55 acres, so there's actually quite a bit of land that we need to fence. So this is quite a need for us, and especially coming into winter months. It was a little bit stressful getting started in February. It went very well, but we really had to rely quite heavily on our volunteers, as we've had 12 surrenders since February of this year, and we've had 28 bylaw dogs since February of this year. So we've had quite a few dogs in and out, and at some point in time, we've actually had 6 dogs at once. So we have to really double up or triple up on our volunteers while we have that many dogs in. So there's also a map provided of the area that we need fenced, including the extra 5 feet of chain link fence at the end of our dog runs. Currently, there's a 5-foot liner there right now, which is basically the same size as the indoor kennels. So it's quite small, so we need to extend it so they actually have a bit of a dog run, instead of just going outside and pooping and peeing where they lay or sit and then come back in and have their bed in there. So that's why we're wanting to extend that a little bit as well. Another ask we do have, and I believe that Raman from the engineer is aware, that we are needing our lot leveled. Currently in the back of our lot, we have 2 big piles of dirt, and it's quite hilly, so that's never been leveled off. The only place that's actually been leveled off was the actual building to finish that, but the back is a little bit of a mess, because again, we have not done anything with that at all. We don't have the equipment to actually level it off, and we were hoping that we could get some assistance for the town with their equipment to actually help level that off, so it'll be ready for when we put the fencing in. We're hoping this fall. So there's been a couple little things with our fencing. The LDS churches in our region actually are taking down their satellite dishes, and around their satellite dishes they have chain link, which also include gates. We were told there was 10 loads coming, which is quite a bit, and I don't know how much 10 loads means. I don't know if that means 850 feet of fencing or more or less, but it sounds like there's quite a few. So it's not just Tabor. They're doing Bow Island, Raymond, Lethbridge, like the whole region.
All the way down to Cardston.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of fencing, and as far as we know, there's gates for every single one of those areas that they're taking down, and we're hoping that that might be those 20 man gates that we need for our facility. So the cost of this fencing, whether it's option A or option B, will go down considerably once we actually have that fencing. Again, we don't know what kind of shape it is in, but viewing some of them, they looked like they were in perfect shape. So we won't know that until it actually comes and this fencing contractor can actually have a look at it to see if it's still really good fencing that we'll be able to use. So we're hoping that that number, that 43,000, even with the 6-foot fence, we're hoping that number would be cut in half, as well as the number 2 below that, the 13,000. We're hoping that would be cut down in half or less as well. So we have put in an ask of 25,000, just kind of hopefully that'll offset some of the costs between what we have. We've just received a $15,000 grant from CFEP. Well, we haven't received it yet, but we have been chosen for that. So that should be coming as well. If you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising for our delegation? Just to start with a clarification, I believe most facilities of similar nature do have dog runs, correct? Do they not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, even our old one had a dog run of sorts, albeit very dated, right?
Correct.
Okay, so as I'm understanding, this is very critical to have not just a volunteer end, but I mean, volunteer dilemma scenario, but
Yes.
as a proper running facility, correct? Okay, thank you.
We actually had our first incident yesterday when it comes
Oh.
to that.
So
Okay.
an officer picked up a dog at large, put it in the shelter, and then I guess not realizing there's no outside runs installed yet, opened the doggy door, so when he left, the dog left. So the dog has made it back to its owners, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right.
It was a happy end.
Any other questions? Councilor Bruin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really have no questions. My only question is where we find the money. But you guys do a great job there, your group, and that dog facility is fantastic. And the way you guys run it and the time you dedicate to it, I think I'd love to be able to help you out with this, but we have to figure out where the money will come from. And I'd support it if we can find financing for it.
Did you want to check with Mr. Earl on that? Is that
Well,
your
perhaps Mr.
ask,
Ora
or-
has looked over at him and he's just,
Mr. Earl?
The question is where the money will come from.
Yes.
It depends on council. If it is treated as capital, then that will be coming from capital reserves. And because as you're aware, we had already given them 150,000 in 2020. And if it's treated as capital with council's direction, that's the only place where the money can come from.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. Councilor Bruin?
Mr. Mayor, I direct my question through to Mr. Scheer. Do we have the equipment in time to level this land off for them?
I think we could do something like that between us and the MD of Tabor. The MD of Tabor was, helped quite a bit with the parking lot and things like that, so we could work that out.
Yeah, I see they're requesting topsoil as well.
We have topsoil.
Yeah, we have a big mountain of topsoil just up the street from them.
Yeah, just up the street.
So,
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Bruin?
so you're asking for 25,000, and it'd be able to come out of capital reserves. I'm willing to make the motion that council authorizes financial assistance in the amount of 25,000 to Tabor Lost Paws Society to complete the kennel runs and perimeter fencing for the Lost Paws building, to be included in the 2022 capital budget.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councilor Chavez?
Your worship, just for clarification, you said the 2022 budget, I believe they want to do this, this project this fall, so does that hinder the completion of this project at this time, ladies?
Mr. Earl? Sure.
Just for clarification, Ms. Worship, the 2022 capital project has been passed by council already.
Yes, correct.
So
Right.
this would just be a direct money coming out of this house from council's direction.
All right. So thank you,
So the
Councilor.
motion is fine as it stands?
No, it's, you may just want to help him out with that a little bit, Mr. Orr, I believe.
Just, the motion would just read for the money to come from capital reserves.
All right. So you just want to withdraw your original motion?
I'll make an amendment.
Can go that route too.
No, just
Just withdraw and start again.
Okay,
Just
I'll withdraw my motion. I get to start over again. Council authorized a financial assistance in the amount of $25,000 to Tabor Lost Paws Society to complete the kennel runs and perimeter fencing for the Lost Paws building to be included in the capital budget. No,
Capital reserves.
reserves, sorry. Let me
Capital
back up from capital budget to capital reserves.
All right, thank you. Counselor Firth, got a question?
I was just going to suggest a friendly amendment.
All right. Perfect, thank you. All right, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you, ladies. All right, on to item 7.3, Tabor District Housing Foundation. Mr. Tebow.
There's a presentation to be given by Mr. Jensen from Tabor District Housing.
Good evening, Mr. Jansen. Welcome. Just as a brief reminder, we do like to keep the presentation roughly 10 minutes and need some room for questions, answers as well there, please. Thank you.
Right. Is there a slide deck? Do you know? Is it? Oh, okay. There you go. Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you, Your Worship and councillors, for having me here. As you see, we've got just a couple of slides in front of you. Just wanted to briefly go through where we're at. If you can, next slide. So these were the goals of our project. We wanted to provide housing for lone person households that are in core housing need. Generally, those were people identified in our research as kind of the working poor. Single people that we currently don't have housing available for them because we only have a few 2-bedrooms, and really those are designed for small families. We wanted to have at least 10% of the units to be accessible. We wanted to have them conform to universal design concepts. We wanted to site it in a spot where it would make sense for people to be able to walk, right? Transportation is probably the second biggest cost that people will have besides housing. And so we don't want to put people in a situation where they're choosing between like car payments and food or their medicine. And we wanted to work with the town of Tabor's Economic Development Department and also for siting, for fitting into the concepts that you had in place for a variety of areas of town. We also wanted and in fact would be required to have a self-sustaining project. If you could do the next slide, please. So you've seen this before. This is a basic concept of Cherry and Main. 32 units with between studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, and then also about 2,500 square feet of commercial space. Next slide. Just a different view. Really trying to show that while this will house people that are paying less than market rent, it does not need to be a less building. We can design it nicely and make it look good and have people live there that maybe need some support. Next slide. This is just a curb view, street view of the commercial space facing 47th Avenue. Next slide. And an overall view. Basically, we put in a placeholder of like a community theater, but that space is your land, whatever you wish to use it for. Next slide. So where we got was instead of 30-some units or 30 units, we actually got to 32 units. We were able to design in a few extra units. We were able to make 20% of the units be handicap accessible. We are looking at a mixed market approach, so there'd be very deeply discounted to market and some slightly discounted to market. We think we were able to work with your department, the Economic Development Department, to come up with something that will beautify the downtown and fits with what you guys have proposed. And we do believe it is self-sustaining. And that's why I'm here today, because we're at the point where we're ready to make application for funding. And in our discussions with ARDN, we believe that's Alberta Rural Development Network. We believe we found a way that could work. Next slide, please. So traditionally, this gives a little bit more about the project. Those 32 units, 21 affordable, 11 market units. Rents would be anywhere from $310 for a affordable studio to around $1,000, $1,050 for a market two bedroom. I'm not sure that the affordable housing, at one point we had them a little bit higher, but they included utility rates. But they are probably actually cheaper than some of the transition housing options that are available right now. We definitely want to use durable, low maintenance items because we want to reduce those maintenance and replacement costs. We're looking at energy efficiency. With our latest study that we did, it appears we actually might be able to achieve net zero, which seems to be the gold standard for funding lately. The idea that you can generate as much energy as you take out of the grid. Of course, the reality is there are some days where you can generate lots of energy, and sometimes the year where you're going to draw lots of it out of the grid. But as long as you kind of equal out over the year, you're considered net zero. We had talked about modular design, and originally it was to reduce cost and build time. I'm not sure that you reduce cost. That our findings have been that there's probably a premium because there's not a lot of companies that offer that method, but it definitely could reduce the amount of construction time. The cost range is large because we're really at, we don't have a very defined design. First level of costing is 25% plus or minus. So we've tried to give the high end side. And we also don't know, we'd never really thought about doing net zero that seriously. If we would do it, there would be additional costs for buying the photo cells and all the equipment that goes with that. Next slide, please. So, why I'm here. Minister Pond was in town a couple months ago, allowed us to sit in on a strategy session or meeting in Lethbridge with a number of the senior organizations and made it abundantly clear. Their interest was finding projects that could fit into a P3 format. So generally that's investment from a local investor, municipality, or charitable organization. Financing from CMHC, and then the last chunk, the last third, coming from the government of Alberta in the form of equity. ARDN indicated that they've actually seen some proposals go through that actually changed up that balance and who was contributing. They asked me whether or not we could find a way to secure debenture financing. Because what they found is CMHC will do forgivable loans under very certain criteria for up to 40% of the value of the project. If we actually could secure the financing, then we're at close to 2/3, and the government of Alberta provides their portion of equity. So next slide. That's my major ask today. Would the town of Taber have the capacity and be willing to underwrite a debenture on behalf of Taber and District Housing Foundation for our Cherry and Main affordable housing project? The breakdown, I realize there's ranges, but the breakdown is that CMHC could provide a forgivable loan up to 40% of the value of the project. The government of Alberta is stated that they will provide about 1/3 of project totals, leaving a remainder of around $1.8 to $2.7 million for debenture financing, which actually we can pay that off. This project can cover that. But there are some things in our business case that we just need to finalize. We need to put a number or a fact in there.
Next slide, please. So one of them is the debenture. And we've made that proposal to the MD of Tabor as well. But are there other ways potentially that the town of Tabor could help? So for our seed funding, for us to move and do our work for the last 6 months, you were very gracious in providing us a letter of intent. You provided us lots 18 to 30 on a very specific project site. So I'm here today, I guess, to kind of get a confirmation. Is that a contribution? Because provide means lots of things. Provide could mean it's available for sale. So we have in our business plan included where the land would be purchased. So then I guess we'd be asking, if we're buying it, what's the value of the land? If it's a gift, thank you. But also some of the other asks. On-street parking is planned for 47th Avenue and 55th Street. There's installation of services. We may, if we go net zero, not connect to natural gas, but there's electrical, water, and sewer. On projects of this size, there's significant permit fees. Development deposits, building permits, development permits. Unsure, sometimes there are off-site levies. And then the last one would be treatment of property taxes. I've asked for waiver there, but ultimately knowing how might this project, knowing that we're serving a very specific audience, how would property taxes be treated? And then also the last kinds of things are, you have people that work for you that have far more expertise than I do in project management or engineering. I guess our hope is that this is a community project. We're trying to provide a form of housing that doesn't exist in Tabor currently, but also in conjunction with the town of Tabor's overall housing plan. The idea is that we entice or interested peoples or interested businesses to make investment in the community by having housing available for employees that they might need. These people that would be in our home, in our proposal, are individuals that maybe aren't working full-time. There might be reasons why they are not working full-time, but there's plenty of reasons why we want to keep them in the community. So that's why I'm here today, hat in hand, to ask for some answers that we can complete our business case application and submit it. The only thing that's a non-starter for us, if we're unable to get the debenture financing, that pretty much makes it where I guess we would come and ask for an investment of dollars to go the more traditional route. I kind of thought that was the least palatable of the asks, knowing that municipalities have had a lot of expenses downloaded on them at the provincial level. But all of the other things are asks. All of them make our proposal more feasible, more sustainable. But the only thing that kind of stops us would be the lack of debenture financing. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Yes, any questions arise from Mr. Jensen? Councillor Chavez.
Yes, Your Worship, I have a number of comments. I like the how else could you help? The property, I was under the assumption that the town was going to give you the property, not charge you for it. That was my understanding of that. I think the rest of council agree to that. We have an energy manager now involved in the town. Perhaps, I'm not sure, but maybe he has the expertise. He could help you with some of the net zero items there. I'm not quite sure if that would be in his forte or not. We could help there. But I would think that the other things here, the land that we committed, we could help with the, I think we could help with the off-street parking and the installation of services and some waivers of some fees and whatnot and the property taxes. I think we could go that way without what's the word, without going down the debenture road. And perhaps that would be the town's commitment to all that, and that would probably work into be quite a sizable sum of money. Perhaps the MD would carry the debenture portion of it, because being in the town, they probably wouldn't want to, do the town servicing and things. So to me, that would be an option that this council could consider, because I guess their contributions in kind, maybe even down the road, if we had an engineer on staff, perhaps we could, help with project management and whatnot there as well. So that would be my take on all this, is to go down that line with you and help you with all those type of things and these type of things. I know when we start, giving waivers and fees, and I can see John over there, he gets I can see his temple start throbbing there a little bit. But I think I think we need to get behind, as a council, we need to get behind this here. And I'll just make a kind of a case in point. On the weekend, I ran into an individual that came here from Lethbridge, and he's here. He's got no place to go, so he's couch surfing. He's going from here to there and whatnot. He doesn't have a place to live. Apparently, he's getting a job with the sugar factory out here as a seasonal worker and whatnot. So there is a direct need for people in this community, because we require seasonal workers, and as we grow in the agribusiness, we're going to see more and more of this all the time. So this is a good, solid project for this community to help some of those individuals, as you call them, the working pool. So I would support this however we can. But of course, this is a council decision to see which way we go with all of this. But those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Tim, sorry. I would echo a lot of what Councillor Stravas said. It was my understanding too that the land was, although I want to clarify, not a gift, an investment in this project. I think this is a very worthwhile project for a lot of the reasons that Councillor Stravas alluded to, and that you are correct, an actual ask of dollars is the least palatable. So I would agree that if we can help with in-kind or with any of these other, of course, with council's support, that I would be in favor of that as well.
All right, thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something Joe and Andy, we've been kind of hoping for some of this for 2 terms now, and we have the opportunity maybe to do something, and it would be ideal if we could somehow figure this out. We got to be careful what we say we're going to do, because a lot of it we can't. I'm a little concerned with the net zero aspect of it. Usually costs a lot more to go net zero than what you're going to gain from it. But if we can somehow help by donating of the land or investing with the land, I think that's a great idea. So I support it if we can pull it off.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I admire your tenacity, Mr. Jansen. Keep hammering at us, and I think it's bound to pay off most likely. I echo what some of the other councillors said, but it's always about the money, right? And Mr. Orva sitting over there, our CFO, we discussed all kinds of debentures, and he's not too much in favor of that, I'm sure, because we're approaching what we call a debt servicing limit. We're getting up there fairly high, actually, and whatever's been said regarding gifts in kind and land donation, land gifts, I'm in favor of, but I'm not in favor of debenture of any kind. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Garner.
I echo what Councillor Stroas and Councillor Firth said. I think that's a great place for this because of ease of transportation on foot for these people. And I think it's just a good use of land. And so I'm fully supportive of that.
All right, thank you. Overall, I think it's a great concept and definitely needs in a lot of areas as well. I guess I need to clarify, though, what's actually occurred in the past, and I believe, Mr. Jensen, you're aware of this also, that, and Minister Pond would support that suggestion Because what was suggested to myself and another council member and administration member some 2.5 years ago was the fact that if we could come up with a land for a project of similar nature, with exactly what we're talking about, what meets the criteria, the province would fund the project. So the way you've got this broken down, it's it looks like it's a doable method in a lot of ways, but I gotta say but, because, and I'm not speaking against it by any means, but the fact of the matter is, Minister Pond did throw that out there. If we could come up with land, I think that was always not just assumed, but understood that we would be able to do that. It's a $550,000 piece of property. But we can live with that and support that. So that's a fairly big investment in itself, right? And, but again, that's on the side. We'd already semi-committed to that side, right? Through Minister Pond. But what I'm seeing right now so far is there's a lot of great discussions that she visited here. That's great also. Looking for these type of projects, but I haven't seen the actual provincial government commitment to the funding source. And that concerns me at the moment. And you know what? In the last 1.5 years, things have changed, no doubt. But they've never said that just yet. So if that's the case, we need to see that on paper. But the fact of the matter, 2.5 years ago, that was the offer. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship, to Mr. Jansen. Has the MD, have you made this presentation to the MD, and how receptive were they?
Well, I did on the 14th. So, but I presented to, I don't know their structure exactly, but they meet twice a month, but once a month is kind of their decision-making, resolution-making body. So I presented it to them as information to the Committee of the Whole on the 14th. My understanding is that they directed their administration to speak with Town of Taber administration. And I believe I'm going there tomorrow. I need to confirm that. But that was my understanding, that both parties were going to discuss at a high level what each party could do. Basically, I made the exact same presentation to them. The contributions in kind were different because they can't actually grant a waiver of property taxes. It's not in their jurisdiction. They can't grant assistance with services and parking and things like that. Would be seen as an intrusion on. But I actually asked them for gravel. I asked them for any sort of professional and engineering, because they run big projects too. This would be a small project for either of the municipalities. For us, it would be, it's a big deal. But I do know, and I spoke to them, and I would say it again to you, that our hope as a foundation is that this is a project that is seen as a community project, regardless of where it's situated, because it does make the most sense to put it where the services are and where the people are. But everybody from the MD and the town would have access to use it. And we believe that it would benefit employers from either jurisdiction as well, to have more people have housing that their employees can afford. Because the alternative is people commute. And I think everybody agrees that that's kind of the least desirable answer to finding employees for impending business decisions, right? Because it's too easy then to think, well, if all my people come from Lethbridge, why don't I locate in Lethbridge? So that's my hope personally, that both jurisdictions can work together and find what works for them. I don't entirely understand the debt servicing, other than there is a limit to what everyone can borrow, even large municipalities. But some municipalities do have, their circumstances are different. Some municipalities have paid off most of their debt at a moment in time, whereas others may have very aggressive capital programs in place. So they're using a lot. So I think that was seen as a potential collaborative effort to find what each party could do. And at the end of the day, hopefully come up with a feasible project that gets built.
All right, thank you. Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Your Worship, just in a follow-up question with Mr. Jansen here, I'm looking at the financing. So you need from the town a definite commitment of the land. So you need that rolled over into your name. That's correct?
That certainly helps, yes.
Okay, and then, so what your discussion with ARDN, Alberta Road Development Network, so they indicated that the CMHC would give that 40% as a forgivable loan, and that would be an asset of $3 to $4 million. The government of Alberta, again, 2.8 to 3.3. So out of that 2.7, the land would have been in that 2.7, so that would already bring that commitment down as far as the debenture and some of the servicing. So that commitment could drop down to 1.8 to $2 million for roughly, without knowing the building
I prefer
cost.
to be conservative rather than at some point in time coming back and going, well, actually. So we have tried to price it conservatively, and we also have not. We will design to what monies become available. Like can be economical decisions made in design, but that gives a good range for where we believe the debenture would be. There are very specific criteria for CMHC to get 40%. But I think that one of the things I found, Mayor Prokop, was that Minister Pon was very clear. They still want to give money, but they've decided that if they don't give more than a third of a project to anybody, they can offer to more projects. My comment at the time was it's very, very difficult in rural to find that investor municipality that can kick in a third cash. And they kind of said, well, they didn't say too bad, but it was, this is the way we've set our criteria. ARDN provided the twist that I think allows us to get into this project at a lot less than a third. And it's not cash injection, it's an underwriting a debenture.
All right, just to clarify, Mr. Jensen, sorry, do you have another question?
Yeah, I just in follow-up, so just on your point here before, so are these the CMHC government, but are those definite commitments then? Through ARDN or?
They're what is available. So that's what we need, the numbers, so we can make that application available to them. So there is a process of getting the approval from CMHC, getting the approval from Government of Alberta.
That's just what I want to clarify, Mr. Jensen, that's CMHC numbers, 40%, that's the 3.4 to 4.0 million, that's at 40%?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, Mr. Tebow, are you familiar with that? Is that 40% solid, or is there a range in there somewhere?
So in my experience, Mr. Mayor, any financing like this, the terminology that's typically used is up to a particular number.
Okay.
And Mr. Jansen's quite correct. There's typically some stipulations to get you up to that.
So this could be a range, just hypothetically, like 10 to 40% as an example? Is that possible?
I would be surprised if it's as low as 10, but to get the 40, you have to hit all the check boxes.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
But I think as Councillor Beckering said, we are somewhat tenacious in finding ways to actually make sure that we can apply and be applicable.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the recommendation from administration regarding the motion, and I think it's rather well crafted, so I'm going to proceed with it if I may. That council request administration investigates the municipality's debt limit, potential regional interest, which is the MD of course, and other factors to determine if this is a recommended and viable project, with information to be brought back to a future council meeting for further consideration.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Jensen.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, next would be media inquiries. Mr. Tebow.
There are no media inquiries at this time.
Thank you. All right, with that, a motion to move back into closed session for our remaining items. Councilor Bruin,
I'll make the motion, we move into closed session.
motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.